Creating a t-shirt from scratch has never been easier. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to mock up some ideas using AI, how to remove the backgrounds using Photoshop, and how to use a service like Printify to actually produce the shirt. So when it's all said and done, you're going to get a shirt that looks kind of like this guy. So Greenhorn Grove is actually a friend of mine's. His name is Matthew. He teaches a lot about homestead and things like that. You can check him out on YouTube. But today, another one of our friends, Brandon, who has White Pepper Farms, you can check him out as well. He does a lot of freeze-dry content. And so we've got some designs that he made from AI, this freeze-dry daddy. We've got the ready for the zombies. And then we also have real food comes dirty. So he wants to make shirts that are just like the one that I'm wearing using Printify. So what we're going to do to create these mockups is first jump into Ideogram. So currently the reason why I recommend Ideogram is because at the time of this recording, it handles typography the best. So if you want to make a shirt that has any kind of words in it, this is probably where you want to start. Now, obviously AI is changing so fast, so maybe you find a better service. If you do, comment below, let us know what the current best AI design generator is that handles words and things like that. So what you can do is describe what you want to see. So in this case, some of these samples that I got, we've got freeze dry daddy. So we went through, gave it a prompt, and this is the artwork we came up with. So the problem is when you go to put your artwork in here, if you don't cut it out, you have this background image that gets in the way. And even if you try to match the shirt background, in this case, let's make this black, it might be close, but you're still going to have that box around it. So there's a few ways we can work. Quick and easy is going to be just to use the design tools inside of, in this case, Printify. So if I click on the artwork, the options across the top change, and I have this remove background option. So if I click on that, it gives me an option to quick remove. You can also erase away pieces of it. I'm just going to hit quick remove. And for the most part, it does a pretty good job right out of the box. I'm going to click apply and let's see how it looks. Now, in this case, it did okay. There's some things down here you can't really see right now, but they're not perfect. Okay. But this might get you close and that might be good enough. And this tutorial could be over. But what we're going to do is create some artwork, bring it into Photoshop, cut it out, and then show you how to get from this, where we have this cool little graphic, all the way to this, where you actually have the artwork cut out and mocked up on a t-shirt. So let's start at the top. Back to Ideogram. If you want to, you can create an account. It'll give you 10 free credits, and then you can create artwork right away. Or in this Explore tab, we can scroll through and find something that's fun to work with. In this case, this cat image popped up right at the top. So I'm on a Mac. I can just click and drag this right to my desktop if I want to. Or you can right click and then save the image or copy the image. So I could save image as, save it to my downloads, whatever you want to do, get your image over here. Now the next thing you want to do is cut out the background. So what I'm going to do is use Photoshop for this. Again, since I'm on a Mac, I can just drag and drop this right over the Photoshop icon to open it up inside of Photoshop. You can also go to File, come down to Open, and then choose it that way. So now that we have this open, I'm assuming that you have little to no Photoshop experience. So I'm going to kind of get into the weeds here. So if you're already skilled with Photoshop, you can skip this part or you can fast forward. Don't forget you can play back the videos faster or slower. You can pause, do the work, and then play. Lots of ways. So if you get lost as I'm coming through this, don't forget you can speed this up or slow it down. All right. So we've opened our image. I'm going to come up here to Window. I'm going to go down to Workspace, and I'm using the Essentials workspace. Depending on what you pick here, it's just going to change all your tools around to make it easier to work with for that task. I'm going to come down to Reset Essentials, and that way I know my workspace hopefully looks just like yours so you can follow along. So we brought in this image and we have our layers tab open over here. So we have this layer here and it's currently locked. I can double click on it and then click OK to just quickly unlock it if I want to modify this layer. But I like to keep layers as I go. So if I break anything or accidentally damage anything and erase the wrong part, I can always go back to the original. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. The way that I like to do it is just hit Command J or Control J on a PC. What that's doing, if I come up here to Layer, New, and then layer via copy. So that's the shortcut. It just copies the layer. Okay. It's just a fast way to work. You'll notice I give a lot of shortcuts, and the reason why is as I get faster, I can make more money as a graphic designer. So I do this for my full-time job. And if I charge a flat rate for a project, if I can do it faster, then I make more money. So it's really important to learn those shortcuts. All right. So we have a new layer. We now have two layers. We've got this guy stacked on top of the one next to it. Okay. So let's go ahead and line this back up. And then what we want to do is cut out this background. Now, there's a few ways to do it. Just like any other software, there's probably 100 ways to achieve the same thing. So I'm going to show you how I would approach getting this cut out. So one of the first things I would try is just simply coming up to my properties window, which you should see over here. If you don't, come over to window, come down to properties, and now you'll see this tab. And if I scroll down, and again, if you're on this layer, if you've started on this one that's still locked, let's go ahead and relock this layer, you're not going to have this option. So that's why I duplicated it and made sure it was unlocked. And if I scroll down here into properties, I have the option to remove background. So let's just click on it and see if we get lucky. So I'll click on that, and it looks like nothing changed. And the reason why is because we cut this out. So it did take out the background, but we still have our image below it, kind of messing things up for us. So what I like to do is add a new layer. So if I click this little plus button, it's going to add a new layer right above whatever layer I had selected. I'm going to hit the trash can real quick. Yes, delete it. So what I like to do is hold on the command key and then click the plus button, and that adds a layer below. Okay. So now this layer below, I can pick a color up here, any kind of bright color, and then I can go to edit, fill, and I'm going to fill it with my foreground color, which is going to be that green color I sampled, and click OK. So now I have a better idea of, did this background removal actually work? So I've got my top layer. I have what's called a mask. So this is non-destructive. This is just hiding. Anything that's black will be hidden. Anything that's white in this mask will be revealed. If I hold on Shift and click on this, I can turn off the mask, and you can see the whole image is still there. Okay. Hold on Shift and click again, turn that mask back on. And so now the layer below it, this green layer, is on top of the layer below. So you can see how we've got these layers stacked. Okay. So let's go ahead and center these back up. And then I'll move this guy back. Okay. So what we need to do is clean up this mask, because if I tried to print this shirt right now, it would look like garbage. All right. So for me, the remove background tool didn't work that great, but because I made a mask for it, I can clean it up using a lot of different tools in Photoshop. One way I could do it is to use a brush. So if I hit the letter B, I can open up the brush here, get my brush tool. I can choose the size and the hardness of it. So the size is how big is that brush. The hardness is how hard is the edge. So if it's 100%, it's going to be a very hard edge. If it's down to 0, it's going to be softened. So if I brush over this, it looks like I'm painting green, but it's really just painting black on my mask. Make sure you're on the mask layer, not on the actual artwork. Okay. I can hit the letter X to swap which color's in front, or I can click on this little tiny double arrow to swap what my foreground color is. So if I want to paint with white, now when I color over this, it's going to be hiding that part of the mask. I like to use the shortcut, the left and right bracket on my keyboard, to make my brush size bigger or smaller. So then I can go like this and just kind of loosely paint back in the parts that got cut out, maybe down here on the toes. So you can see that using this method is going to be very time consuming, but it's a way to control where your mask is. Okay, so that's one way to work. We're going to go ahead and turn this layer off, come back down to my original layer, hit Command J to make a new copy. And I'm just going to drag this up to the front, and we're going to try this again. This time, instead of using the remove background, I'm actually going to use a different tool called the magic wand. If I hit the letter W for my wand, you'll see it over here. There's also some other selection tools. So all we're trying to do is get a quick selection, and a couple of things that are going to help you out with the magic wand. Up here, I want my tolerance set fairly high, anywhere from like 24 to 40. I feel like I get good results. And the other thing I'm going to turn on is this contiguous box. I don't know if I said that right. Contiguous. I don't know. We're going to turn this on. What that means is it's only going to select pixels that are next to each other. It's not going to select pixels that are in the middle. If I turn this off and click, it's going to select everything in the color range I select, no matter where it's at in the artwork. I'm going to go to select, deselect. We're going to try it again. We're going to turn this back on. And now when I click, it only selects pixels that are touching each other, but it doesn't get into the other artwork. Okay, so that's, in this case, probably the best way to get this sampled. With it selected, it's selecting all of the white or cream colored pixels around the edge that I selected. I'm going to come over here to this layer, and down below we have this little square with a circle inside of it. It's a layer mask. If I click on that, it's going to add a mask to this layer. And again, all a mask does is it just masks out or hides pieces of the artwork based on what color is in the mask. So again, black hides and white reveals. Well, we've got this backwards, so we need to invert it. So I'm gonna click on my mask, I'm gonna hit Command I, and it's gonna flip what the selection is. It's the same as coming up here to Image, Adjustments, Invert. So we're just inverting whether it's black or white on the mask, okay? So this looks a lot better if I zoom in on these details compared to the one before where you see it missed a lot of these little details around the fur. So I'm already further down the road with a better selection here. Now there's still a few pieces that are missing and there's a lot of ways to clean this up. In this case, I'm going to make sure I'm on the mask layer, not the artwork layer. And you can tell because when it's selected, you've got a little white box around it. I'm going to get my magic wand tool selected. And now I'm going to click in the pieces that I want to add to it. Okay. So I'll click in there. That selection is still selected. And I'm going to come up here. And this time I'm going to do is hold down the Shift key. And you'll notice on my cursor, it changes from the magic wand tool to a magic wand with a plus next to it. So it's going to add to my other selection without deselecting it. If I were to click anywhere else, it erases or removes the selection prior. So you make sure you hold down that Shift button and click. Okay. So we're going to start here and see how this looks. Maybe right here as well. I'm going to make sure I'm on the mask layer. And because I want to hide or erase, I'm going to use erase in quotes because we're not really erasing this. It's just being hidden with the mask. I'm going to make sure I'm on the mask layer and I want to fill it with black. So the keyboard shortcuts I like to use are Option Delete and Command Delete. So Option Delete fills with the front, Command Delete fills with the back color. So right here, my mask is selected. I've got the selection. I want to fill this with black. My black is currently the background color. So if I hit Command Delete, it's going to fill that with black. Okay. Could also go to Edit, down to Fill. Another way to do it. Again, there's 100 ways to do things in Photoshop. All right, hopefully you're staying with me. I'm trying to make this as straightforward as possible without it taking a long time. I know we're already getting into it. So let's keep going. I'm going to deselect that selection by hitting Command D. All right, now let's look around here and it's looking a lot better. This is in really good shape. I could probably send it just like this. If I wanted to clean it up a little bit, I could. One thing that I noticed with artwork like this that helps it feel more polished is to add a stroke around the edge. So with my artwork selected, I'm going to come down here to this little FX tab and I'll click on that and I'm going to click stroke. So it's going to add a stroke and you can click on this color to change the stroke to whatever color you want. So maybe you want it to match the artwork by sampling wise. Oh, it's not letting me sample it because if I cancel this, you'll notice I have the mask selected. So the sample only saw black or white. If I click over here, then we click on the FX and we add a stroke. Now when I go to sample, I can sample the color from the artwork. So if you want to sample this and make it match, you could do it that way. I want it to be all the way white. So I'm just going to click and drag all the way up to the corner, click OK. And now I can change the size of my stroke to whatever feels the best here. We'll go something kind of like that. I can change whether the position of the stroke is outside the artwork, inside the artwork, or centered to the edge of the artwork. I'm going to go ahead and set it to outside. And then for now, that's all I want to do. So I'll click OK. And this is ready to go and ready to export. So to get this artwork out of Photoshop and up to Printify, what we're going to do is simply right click and then go to Quick Export as PNG. I'll save this to my desktop. We'll call it Artwork Export V1. It's a PNG. So the reason why I want it to be a PNG file is because PNGs support transparency. If I right click and I go export as, and it'll just do this one layer, and I have the set to PNG, you'll notice you get these checkerboards. That's just a way of Photoshop showing you this is transparent data. If I click on this and change it to a JPEG, that transparency goes away and it forces it to be a colored solid background. Okay, so what we want to do is make sure we set it to PNG, and we can export it that way as well. And then let's say you didn't want to just export a whole layer. You want to do the entire piece. You could come up here to File and come down to Export and export as PNG this way. Now I want to show you the difference. So we're going to do Export version 2 with the menu. export. So just so you can see the difference. So if we jump to the desktop and we have the export V1 and I hit spacebar to preview, you'll notice the artwork is trimmed right to the edge of the actual layer and the pixel data, okay? And it's transparent. If I move this around, you can kind of see the glass effect, but you can see the colors from behind showing through. So I can tell this is transparent. Now the other version we did, I had my layers turned on. So this included all of the edge around it. So even if I had turned off this green background and the layer below it, let's turn that off. Let's go to File, Export, Export As. We'll do a JPEG. You'll notice it doesn't crop to that layer's artwork and pixel data. It actually crops to the canvas. So you get that extra space around it, okay? All right, so this artwork was pretty straightforward, but it's not always this easy. So let's look at something that's a little more complicated. I'm gonna open up this other sample. I'm gonna go ahead and hit Command J or Control J on a PC to duplicate that layer. So I've got a copy here. I'm gonna click the little plus sign on my layers palette to get another layer, and we're just gonna fill it with another color. Maybe let's make it different this time. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna hit Option Delete, Alt Delete on a PC to fill with whatever my foreground color is. Okay, so whatever's in the front, Option Delete, it'll fill it with that blue color. I'll drag this layer between just so I can see what's going on here. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove the background of this. Let's go ahead and just see what happens when we use the properties window. We scroll down, hit remove background, and it does okay. It's not great though. A couple things I noticed right away. We've got some weird kind of like cut in here, cut some of the font. Like it's not perfect by a long shot. So how do we make this perfect? I'm gonna go ahead and undo that, hit Command Z, Control Z on a PC. And let's try the magic wand. I'll hit the letter W. I'm gonna set my tolerance down to 20 just to show you something real quick. If I click on this, let's go ahead and mask it. Let's invert the mask, Command I. All right, so we have some issues here where it took out more than I wanted to. The other thing you'll notice, if I add a stroke to this, it's not as smooth as the other artwork by a long shot. You'll notice we have all of these imperfections around the edges. It's not very smooth, and I don't like how it looks. So let's go ahead and cancel that. And what happened was, the tolerance was lower, and so it didn't select some of this, it didn't reach in and smooth out this selection, okay? So what I'm gonna do is delete this mask. I'm just gonna drag it to the trash. I'm gonna hit delete. I'll try again. So this time I'm gonna change my tolerance back up to like 40. I'll leave contiguous selected, and then I'm gonna click, this time instead of just adding a mask and having it be backwards, you can also go to select inverse. So this will invert the selection. And I can click the little mask button there. So that's better. If I add a stroke to this, you can see it's a lot smoother around the edges since we cleaned up that selection, but we still have some issues here in the middle where it's not how I want it to be. So there's a few ways to work. One is I can go back in and I could use a different tool like the lasso tool, the letter L, it looks like a lasso. And with this, I can quickly, oh, I changed the last second here to the polygonal lasso tool. Anyway, the lasso tool, and you can click and drag to make a selection. I can hit down the Shift key to add to that selection, or the Option key or Alt on a PC to remove from that selection. So I could come through here, hold on Shift and eyeball it and just kind of add back in, you know, the pieces that I want it to fix. Hold on Shift. Just kind of freehand it and get it close. And if I come back over here to my mask, and black is currently hiding what's in that mask. So I'm going to make sure I've got white on top, and I'm going to go to Edit, Fill with my foreground color and click OK. And it brings back the image that it was hiding. Okay. So that's another way to bring back some of that. Sometimes you need to be a lot more precise with your selections. And so when I need that, I use the pen tool. I'm gonna hit the letter P on my keyboard. You'll see the pen tool selected and my options across the top change. By default, it's gonna start drawing with the shape, which is gonna fill in your path that you make. But I actually wanna draw with the path. So I'm gonna delete that shape that it made. And I'll make sure that instead of drawing with the shape, I'm drawing with the path. And I'm gonna start making a path And with the pen tool, it's really cool is you can click and then drag a little bit with these handles you have, and it adjusts the curve of the line. So I can adjust this curve to match the curve of this shape a lot better. I'll click here and then drag. And again, it's really tough to see on this blue background. So let's go ahead and undo this. Let's click on this background and just change the color to something else so we can see what's going on here. Go back to my pen tool, click, drag, click and drag. And then we'll just come over here and close this line. Now that I have a path, I can right click and go to make selection. And it's going to turn my path into those marching ants, that selection, okay? Now I can come back over to my mask layer, and I want to fill this selection with white to bring back the artwork that's being hidden. So white is my foreground. I can hit Option Delete and it'll fill it with white, and that artwork comes back. I can come up here to select and deselect to remove that selection. Let's zoom out and you can see that looks a lot better, but I've got a few more to do. So what I'm going to do is just grab my pen tool and just quickly kind of close that gap. Click and drag, click and drag. Okay, so this is me still trying to work a little bit fast, but just trying to get these edges to come back how the artwork was, okay? And then we'll close this shape off. We'll come back over the first point and you'll see my cursor changes and it has that little circle next to the pen tool. That means I'm closing the path. Click on that. With the pen tool still selected, I'll right click. I'll click make selection. We'll click OK. So now I've got a selection that's going to be perfectly curved. Oh, I missed a spot. Oh well. We'll click on this mask and we're going to fill it with white. Deselect my selection, do another selection down here. And again, this is probably more effort than is needed, but at least you know that it's going to be perfect when it's done. Another thing I can do is click over here on paths, command click on that path, and it'll turn it into a selection. We'll jump back to layers. There we go. And we're going to fill it with white. Zoom out. And I think we're in pretty good shape. I could clean this up a little bit if I wanted to. This, I might use the magic wand tool and select in here. Make sure you're on the actual artwork layer. Come back to my mask. This time I want to fill it with black to hide that. So black is my background color. So hit Command Delete, Control Delete on a PC to fill it. I could leave this, or maybe I fix this real quick. Fill that with black. Okay. So I just kind of go through and decide whether I want to keep pieces of this or cut it out. And then once I've got it pretty much how I want it, now what I can do is, oh, I noticed one more thing in here. So I'm click back on my artwork and I notice we've got kind of a weird line that didn't get finished. So I could either choose to bring this in or I could fill this here. I'm gonna hit the letter L to get my selection tool, my lasso. I'm gonna click and drag around this, and in Photoshop 2025, when you make a selection, down here you'll have this contextual taskbar. If you don't see this, go to Window, come down here to Contextual Taskbar, and then I can click Generative Fill, and it's going to generate what it thinks I'm trying to remove or add to this image. So we'll let it do its thing. All right, and it fixed that perfectly, so I don't even have to change anything, but it did give me samples over here in my properties window, so I can click on these different versions and see which one actually looks the best. We'll go with that one. And now you notice it added it as a separate layer above. So if I get my move tool, I zoom in and I move this, you'll see it actually added this little piece as a separate layer. So I can still turn this on and off. It's non-destructive, okay? Now what I wanna do is actually add a stroke to this layer to kind of clean it up like we did with the last one. So come down here, click on the FX button, we'll go to stroke, and then we'll just make this kind of match the same thickness, maybe a little thicker than these lines coming in it. That looks good. Click OK. And now we just need to export this image as well. So if I click export like I did the last time and I just do this one layer, it's not going to include the layer above it. If I click File, and export from here, it's going to do everything, including these background layers. So there's a couple ways to work. In this case, the best way to export this artwork, so that way it keeps everything together, is to just turn off these layers below by clicking on the eyeball. And then you'll also notice that this, if we export, is going to get cut off. So let's fix that. What I'm going to do is come up here to Image and come down to Reveal All. And it's going to reveal all the pixels in this document. So that way it made my canvas a little bit bigger so I can see those, okay? We're actually gonna do one more thing. I want to crop this to be exactly the same size as my artwork. So I'll come up to Image, come down to Trim, and we're gonna trim away the top, bottom, left, and right of anything that has a transparent pixel, okay? So I'll click OK, and it's going to crop my image down to the exact size of the image. We'll go to File, come down to Export, and then we're just gonna do a quick export as a PNG. So we have that transparency in the background. We will call this Artwork Export V2. I should probably name it something better, but anyway. All right, so now we have that on our desktop as well. Let's go take a look. Hit the space bar, we can see it's got the transparency around it. It's looking good. Something weird going on with my preview. I see this purple square, this kind of faint thing. But if I double click on the image and open it up, it seems to be okay. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is jump into Printify. Setting this up is pretty straightforward beyond the scope of this video, but basically once you're in there, you can choose what kind of garment you wanna make. I'm in the editor now. I'm gonna click Upload. I'll choose from my device, and I'm gonna go find that artwork that I just made. Let's go down to this guy here. I'll hit Upload. It's gonna add the file to the library. It's gonna add it to the shirt. If I want to, I can change the color of the shirt. If you don't see this window, it's just this little guy up here on the top right. We'll click on this. We can select variants. I can add, let's say, graphite or black as an option. I'll close this. And now you can see we have that subtle stroke. This looks great, even on a black colored shirt. And then what's really cool is I can click Preview, and it's gonna make a mock-up of the artwork. And I can choose from some different sample mock-ups. I can even put it on a model if I want to. And some of the apparel options, if I click Show More, have even more models and different photo angles to try this out and just see what looks best. It even angles the artwork to match the angle of the model. So once you find what you like, if you want to put this on your personal website or maybe on your portfolio, with this selected down here, I can click Download Mockup. It is going to save that mockup as a photo right to your downloads. If I open that up, you can see the artwork on the model and looking good. All right, we covered a lot of ground in this video. So hopefully you were able to follow along, but if you still have questions or if something didn't make sense, please comment below. Let me know how I can help you out. And I can't wait to see what you made. So if you've got something you can share, if you can share the link below or let us know how to find your work, I'd love to check it out. And good luck. Thanks for watching.